your ideals and of course your aspirations. So the effort is not just to do that, but to go a little beyond. Because I think in, shall I say, in my short political history of 48 years, I don't recall anyone in office attempting to codify the ideas and thoughts and perhaps some of the strategies and programs that they have implemented and or brought to consideration by not only those within their constituency, but those without of their constituency. And that is really a sort of verbose way of saying that very many people have not written books. We are oral people, primarily, and we carry our stories in our minds and in our heads, and we relate them, and after we relate them, they are related. And when they are related, they have relatives that sometimes don't even look like the story itself. So we know how that goes. So I thought that we needed to record what we have done. But we needed to do something else. Because Jamaicans are great thinkers. Marcus Garvey taught us that very early, that we're great thinkers. And he was one of the first in recorded time that went to codify his thoughts and to say to the world, this is a blueprint, this is how we think, this is why we are who we are. And this represents the stream that we want to follow, that will lead us to another place and to enable a more successful people. And his thoughts were not just Jamaica, his thoughts were global. So it's so very early that Jamaicans are global people. And then we have a number of other people that came on afterwards, some of our great musicians. The most prominent and notorious of which, of course, is the Honorable Nestor Marley, who is today recognized as not just a global icon in music, but a little more than that, a millennial man. So to be recorded as a millennial man is perhaps the highest thing that could happen to you. And it happened to a Jamaican, Robert Nestor Marley. And then it wasn't just a millennial man, but it was also a millennial song, One Love. And then a millennial album by the same name. You see, so here we go. And then we ended up in more modern times with global figures who have done things that nobody has. 9.53. No one has ever done, and argued. And who knows? Might never do. And then, of course, we have aspirants who have come close and then only because, and I will not go for the reasons why, but, you know, to get to 10.45, not bad in normal times for normal people. And Jamaicans are normal people. So if we get to that other stage, and we hope we will never do, but the way we are going, who knows? Just go to Paris in the summer, and you may never know. You may go even better than 10.3. So make the point, therefore, that we do not lack experiences, nor inspiration, nor examples, nor models of greatness. And so we should aspire continuously to exceed that which we know. And you will forgive me if just at this point I quickly say we decided in 24 we're going for more. So our mantra for tourism in particular, but Jamaica in general, is that we will do more and be more and get more and offer more, and we also expect more in 24. Can we have a yes? Thank you very much. Okay, so now in 24, we brought 3 books relating first of all to how we navigated the most existential threat. I hate to feel that I'm being truncated along the way. I work in a world of frontier. So maybe I could avoid this thing? No? All right, let's work with it then. So started out we started out by trying to navigate one of the, in fact, not one of, but the most existential threat to Anthropocene Earth. Because you know, Earth since man, before man, it was the Holocene period, then came Anthropocene period. And this has been the most existential threat that we've ever had. We've had threats before, emanating from, I think it was about the 3rd, 4th, 5th century, a massive earthquake which resulted in a volcano in Iceland, the plumes of which covered Asia and Europe. And for 3 years, there was darkness, and we had temperatures of minus 54, minus 62, and in the summer it was like -1 degrees Celsius. Millions of people died, plants and animals devastated. But the Americas was not touched. Subsequent to that, we've had epidemics, pandemics, and all sorts of other types of disruptions, some of which have been seismic, some of which has been weather related, some of which has been related to terrorism and to all sorts of diseases, and you know the names Ebola and SARS, early SARS, and you could name them, but they have all been confined to regions, the continents, the countries. This one covered the entire earth simultaneously. And so for that period, we thought, my God, this might have been the end. And several of us understood the moment to be perhaps the last. And then we, for our sins, as the human family, because we developed science and we developed data, we decided to rely on data and science. And what science did was to tell us about the virus, the little they knew, and then it told you that it was airborne, and it told you that since it's airborne, it has a life of X time. So if you stayed a little, first of all, if you covered your nostrils, because it's airborne, so you have to inhale and ingest. So if you covered your nostril and your mouth, chances are you wouldn't inhale and ingest because there's no other air for it to enter your body. So we covered it. And we said yes, everybody, every person in the world said yes. First time in Anthropocene Earth that everybody, every class, every race, every color, every creed, every language, every religion said yes to the same thing. Cover. And then science says that this thing travels a certain distance and then it falls and it dies over time. So if you stay within a distance of 5 to 8 feet or so, chances are it won't get to you. So everybody stayed at this, all over the world. until we developed something called being together apart. We're all together apart. And the same science tells us that this thing can stay on surfaces and you can get it by touching, feeling. And we said, don't touch, don't feel. And everybody decided not to touch. And we weren't shaking hands anymore. And we weren't hugging anymore. And we weren't kissing anymore. And we were bowing. And all of us were doing it. So what happened in the period too is that we said that this thing is transmitted from human to human. Therefore, you must stop travel. And guess what? Planes stopped flying all over the world. The ships stopped sailing all over the world. The factories closed. And so we went into a period that we call now the period of anthropause. So Anthropocene Earth now going through anthropause. That means nothing happened. Pause. During that time of the pause, ships, no planes, factories, no. But guess what? Animals were able to roam in the wild and they were not hunted because there were no hunters. The fish got a chance to grow and expand in the sea because there were no fishermen running around. Nature got a chance to breathe and move again. And through that same management of science and data, because the data now, we start to talk about R naught and all those kind of things. You remember those things? R naught? The rate of infection and all that. And we use science and we went through the period through what we call iteration, trial and error, yes, until we finally found. And then we came now to the period that we call anthropause. That is when things start to happen again. People, yes. So we move from anthropause to anthropause. So the planes start flying again, and the ships start sailing. But what happened to us after now the anthropause, then the anthropause was something now we call supply chain disruption. Because anthropause created a demand for goods and services that were no longer available, or if available, not accessible, because the planes weren't flying and the ships weren't sailing and factories weren't turning. So during all of this period, the world sought to find a way as to how to recover now and to bring back their economies. And one thing that people discovered that it was impossible to stop doing, at least for any appreciable length of time, that was travel. Moving from one location to the other. So science helped us to stay together apart through virtualization. So I was talking to Carmen, and that helped me to remain sane. Virtually. So she and I would be looking at each other and smiling at each other, longing for each other, but at least knowing that each other exists. And so travel, I for example, tell you the story that I had travel withdrawal syndrome. I would wake up sometimes 3 a.m. in the morning and just face the floor. I'd get outside and walk and say, oh my God, and worry about my grandchildren. That's what happened. But I was a little different in that I travel. That's what I do. Yeah? Just like how he talk. Well, I travel. So that happened to me, and I'm sure he had his withdrawal syndrome because he couldn't go to court. And he couldn't deal with his legal cases. And that caused an issue. So we all had psychosocial issues coming out of that period of anthropause. So when Pulse came, we all became a little confused as to what we were doing and what we were about. And I won't tell you some of the problems that still prevail even today as a result of that period that we went through. But what became the salvation for the economies of the world was, guess what? Travel. People were able now to travel, and that relieved them. And when they traveled, they tried to spend, and they would try to spend. And so Jamaica became an interesting economic miracle only because of travel. I went all around to say that to you because I wanted to bring you to the fact that several people believe that tourism is merely a social activity that enables leisure and a little bit of pleasure. And I wanted to make the point to you today. It's not what the book will say to you. Because what I tried to do here was to put a lot of what I just said to you in here. You will come across those terms like anthropology and anthropology and so on. Yes, you will. But we begin with the fact that tourism is the only industry on planet Earth that has the highest level of resilience. So we talk a lot about resilience here. But I should boast a little bit on your behalf before we go any further. I should tell you that 2017, 3 years before this COVID-19, this most existential threat that we talk about, we had the vision that the world is loaded with disruptions. And we also knew that island states like Jamaica were vulnerable to disruptions. Particularly, of course, in our case, weather events, hurricanes. We had hurricanes. In fact, the Caribbean has more hurricanes than any other region on the planet. And then earthquakes. And although we didn't have problems with terrorism and all that, we suffered the consequences of 9/11 was a good example. But we also are vulnerable to epidemics and pandemics and so on. Typhoid and you name it, we get it in this room. So we decided that one of the things that we must do is to develop a whole program of building capacity to deal with disruptions. To firstly be able to identify disruptions when they are coming, to mitigate against the disruption when they are approaching, to manage them when they come, as inevitably they do, and then to recover, and to recover quickly, and to thrive. So the 5 steps of resilience, as we thought then, are codified also in this. In Jamaica established a think tank called the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center. I suppose if you Google that, you will probably see my name too often. But I got the university professor Waller, who I asked to be my advisor, along with Professor Don Hawkins from the University, Washington University, George Washington. And they gave advice. And we established this center at the university. And in 2019, December 2019, we established the first satellite center in Nairobi, in Kenya. And the pandemic hit March of 2020. So just to let you know that I visited the university in 2021, and as I walked in, they said, the prophet has come. But I've said that to say to you that Jamaica was prepared, far more prepared than any other Caribbean island to deal with the disruptions because we started to think that through 3 years before the pandemic. So by January, when the first Hunan story broke, and we recognized that something was happening all over in the travel community, we established the recovery task force. And by March, when the World Health Organization declared the pandemic, we were ready to begin to write a document in relation to what are the protocols that we must follow. And Jamaica became the first country in the Caribbean to have a full set of protocols accepted by the World Travel and Tourism Council. And we were the third country in the entire world to have the designation for safe travel. Nice. So 3 months after COVID was declared as a world pandemic, and everybody else's borders were closed except the United States. And I had the good fortune yesterday of meeting the Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs in Jamaica. I made a point that we in the Caribbean are eternally grateful to the United States of America because in COVID, you never close your borders, and so tourism continued to happen in the Caribbean because of the United States of America. So we opened our borders in June of 2020, and we never closed. 1 year after, we made the first 1 million visitors to Jamaica from zero. And the end of 23, we brought in, and I have the figures here. We brought in 4.122,100. That is 4,122,100 visitors, and earned for Jamaica 4.2 billion US dollars. And that represented the possibilities for Jamaica to enjoy, like no other country in the region, 10 consecutive quarters of positive economic growth. And all those 10 quarters tourism led, and the 11th quarter, you will hear shortly as the reports will come, growth again. And I'm assuring you that the 12th quarter, which will end March 31, tourism will grow because this is the strongest winter that Jamaica would ever see in the history of tourism. Last year, we broke the record of having the first 2 million American stopover visitors, not cruise now. You know, cruises come for 8 hours and down. Stopover, that means they spend 8 to 9 nights per visit. 2,100,000 Americans came to Jamaica last year for stopover, visit, and arrival, and spent 2.5 billion US. Wow. Now, when we look at what happened, it meant now that the US market has changed its whole profile. And we saw that traditionally it was Caucasian US that dominated tourism for Jamaica. Well, Afro-American took over in the last year. And the level of Afro-American visit to not just Jamaica, but the entire Caribbean is absolutely unprecedented. And I'm willing to wager, and I've not done the stats yet, but we are looking at it, that more than 40% of that 2 million visitors represented Afro-American and diaspora. That's a significant demographic shift. But guess what? The spend increased dramatically. I heard this sort of voice. Black people spend a lot. So what's the argument? Yes, they came on the front of the plane. Yes. They took Half Moon and Trial and Roundhill and G-Jam. Yes, and they took all the sandals too. Mm-hmm. So we're saying that the result of all of this has been that Jamaica's economy now is on a solid footing. So much so that the multilaterals are literally tripping over themselves to offer support for us. And whereas in the past, tourism was not being seen as an industry for serious investment, the investment is now happening. I'm going back tomorrow to break ground for the first 28-story building in Jamaica. 4 towers of 28 stories for 500 top-end hotel rooms in Montego. And yesterday I left with the dream of Tavistock finally happening, with new investors determining now that we will have one of the top ends of tourism product in the Caribbean, built in Trelawney at Harmony Cove. And we're going to break ground this year for it. 1,000 rooms, but mixed. 1,000 rooms in one structure. A mix of high-end villas, overwater bungalows, owned by individuals, high-end, high-profile, high-net-worth individuals from the United States and across the world. And we are looking at how to build now sustainable products. And ESG, you hear that nice new term? Yes, it is now the statement for investment from everybody. As long as you're now into environmental things and, social development and governance and all that, yes, you can get quite a lot of money. It's happening. So I'm going to Spain on Monday to sit with some of the major partners of ours who are now looking at expanding not just now hotel rooms, but to build houses for the workers of the tourism industry. That they are now interested in talking to us about training and development and upskilling. And you will see in this book a little bit about that too, as I established the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation, again in 2017. And since then, we have certified 15,000 tourism workers who were competent workers on the job, but not certified. So now they were cooks, now they can be sous chefs, because they have something called the American Culinary Foundation designation. So we did something else that happened also during COVID, even though the thinking started before COVID. But after COVID, it materialized properly and came into being in 2022. And that is the first, not just Jamaica now, but worldwide, the first serious social safety net created for the workers of the tourism industry. Jamaica gave the world a comprehensive tourism workers' pension. But we did one thing better than that. We created a category called the augmented contributor. And who is that? That is somebody who started to pay at age 59 and who will become pensionable 5, 6 years after. And we provided that that pensioner would receive the same pension as someone who had started working and contributing at age 8. The government of Jamaica, the government of Jamaica provided 1 billion Jamaican dollars to seed the fund and enabled accretion from day one, even before the first contributions. And the good news for you that in the first year that just finished, $1.3 billion of contributions were collected from nearly 10,000 workers, and the fund now has 2.5 billion. We're not ready to pay out yet, because the augmented worker would have another 3 or 4 years before they come. So by then we would perhaps be well over, 10, 20 billion. And I expect even more, because as the membership grows and as the participants increase, because tourism now covers almost every element. And if you work 30% of your income wages is from tourism, you qualify to be a member of the tourism workers pension. Now, I just mentioned to you training, development of the human capital, yes, creating stackable credentials to enable mobility and portability. So now you can step out and walk and go to the United States as a qualified, yes, and get good salary. Pension program and a housing program. So now we are changing the labor market arrangements in tourism. And people have been bawling that they are low paid and this is low thing job, and the latest talk in Jamaica now is about low paid, this low paid, that, as if to say after COVID if you had any pay at all. There's a little thing in sociology that we call psychology of relative deprivation. You had one car and your friend have two, and you say, oh my God, I only have one car and you have two. It's a terrible thing. You decide to eat up the world because you only have one car and he has. No, the way we talk about the bone and the dog and the bone. And it is something that we Jamaicans, we call it another name. What's the name of that one we call it?
Crab in a barrel.
Bad mind.
Bad man. No, that's the one. That's the one. Bad man. No. Red, grudgeful and bad man. Bad man and grudgeful.
Some nice, pedantic, sociological terminology. Just being what? Simple Jamaican?
Bad man.
And we don't get it. And so we want everything to just happen overnight now, forgetting that we had anthropause. And that the pulse is causing for a demand for services and goods we don't have. Here's a good one up there. I'm closing now. Because everything I tell you is in this. It's a fun reading. And by the way, I'm leaving it here for the space. And we should have talked about this wonderful innovation that has changed the face of, I think, the Caribbean cultural realities within South Florida. And I want to comment on that. I did my tour. For my sins, I have 50 copies, and I'm donating all 50 copies to Island Space. And I will sign an autograph when you pay for it, so that the sources can stay right here.
Thank you, sir.
But just to let you know, that in my heart, it pains me when we forget that 2 years ago, we weren't sure of who we are, what we are, where we were going, and whether we could even go. And while the rest of the world is struggling to recover and to barely even survive, because the rest of the world is about 60% recovered at best from COVID. Jamaica is not only 100% recovered, but is ahead of 2019. That all the accounts from all external. IMF gave us $1.6 billion US for ESG, for resilience and sustainability efforts because of how Jamaica had recovered. The World Bank is offering us all kinds of resources now. Exactly, for infrastructure development and so on, because of how we have recovered. But the psychology of relative deprivation is playing a little role. And so, you know, some of us are a little agitated and say funny things. And the wonderful thing that social media has done is to offer us a platform to speak. And we do. And we speak many things. Some of us don't even know what to speak, but we speak because we have access. And people will read and listen. But the important thing is that the platform has a leveling effect. It's open to everybody. And so you speak and I speak. And then you can judge which speech to follow. And I implore you to use your minds wisely and well. Read extensively and well. And follow. Because I travel around the world, I must tell you. And everywhere I go, the name Jamaica is magic.
Mm-hmm. But of course.
The name Jamaica is magic. And it is not magic because we are falling down. And when your Gallup poll said last month that Jamaica was one of the safest places on earth, we said, no, Gallup, you're wrong. Especially in the diaspora. Oh my God. All right. I didn't say so. Andrew Holness didn't say so. Governor General didn't say so. Gallup said so. And who are they polling? Whole heap of people all over the world. And they say, and we have 42% repeat business in tourism. So every tourist that you see on the beach has been to Jamaica at least once. That make you the unsafe place. You understand what I'm saying, team? So let us glory in the fact of who we are. That we truly are a wonderful people. Yes, we're little, but we